Oh, my friend. We are like blood brothers. Look at this.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and like Tom Bilyeu says,
at the end of the day, if you're not taking action, nothing matters.
And that's why I create these videos to help you take the knowledge you're learning and turn it into action.
Thank you for inviting me into your home.
Dude, thanks for coming, man.
I love it. Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
You do not need to think that you are anything special. It is absolutely okay for you to be hopelessly average. Why? To me, the most powerful thing that you could believe about yourself is that you're the average human. Now, why? I actually think it is less powerful for you to think that you are above average, because to think that you are above average means that you are valuing yourself for being better than people. It's a super vulnerable position to be in because you will inevitably meet people who are better than you. And what do you do with your ego then? Then it's really crushing. You thought you were the man, and now you encounter somebody that's better than you. They slap you around, they outperform you, they dunk on you, whatever. And now, whoa, like you've got to rebuild and claw your way back. Versus saying the following: the average human is the ultimate adaptation machine. As a species, humans have chosen to respond to cultural and environmental cues. So we do not come pre-programmed like a horse that comes out of the womb. 10 minutes later, it's ready to rock and roll. It's running around doing all the things that a horse can do. A human, on the other hand, has this huge period of development after birth where we cannot take care of ourselves. We can't walk, can't hold our own head up. We shit in our pants. It's crazy. But what that does is it allows us to drink in the environment that we're born into and adapt. So the average human is the ultimate adaptation machine. Therefore, being the average human means you're a learner. That's it. You're not exceptional. So you're not putting any of your psychology, your self-worth, your pride into being better than somebody else. It all comes down to valuing yourself for being the learner. So, hey, cool, you wasted a bunch of time at school. No reason to hide from that. It was a waste. We're not going to repeat the mistake, but we learn. So you've got the self-awareness to see that it was a mistake. Now it's just like, what do you want to do? What do you want to get great at? Because if you apply yourself, even if you're not good yet, you can get good. How do I know that? Because you're the average human. And the average human is the ultimate adaptation machine. This is all about disciplined, focused energy into acquiring a skill set. It's what I call the only belief that matters. When you believe that time and energy directed at something through deliberate practice will actually make you better at that thing, now all of a sudden it's like, I can get good at anything if I apply myself. And now all of a sudden your behaviors align with your belief. That's why that belief matters so much. Because if you don't think you can get better at something, then why would you apply any time and energy to it? And if you don't apply time and energy to it, then you really won't get any better. So it becomes this loop of, well, I believe I can get better, therefore I try, therefore I actually get better, therefore I try harder, and you get in this virtuous cycle. This is hugely important. That is one of those things that will govern the rest of your life. You value yourself for learning, getting better at something, and applying yourself. Everything else will take care of itself because you just keep applying yourself. Don't make excuses. Don't BS yourself. If you wasted time, you wasted time. Don't spend your time beating yourself up over it, because we only do and believe that which moves us towards our goals.
Rule number 2, have rules.
Rules are, I think, underutilized in people's lives. And this is something that I use on a daily basis. And the rules that I have laid out in my life allow me to stay on track. So for instance, you have a problem in the morning of facing an inadequacy. Okay, so you know something about yourself, that you like the out of thinking that you don't have time, so that you don't have to face, I set a goal, I gave that goal a deadline, and I missed that deadline. And that means, punchline of punchlines, that I'm not good enough, which is true if you add the modifier yet. I'm not good enough yet. Now, the thing that's going to let you off the hook and allow us to slot in some rules, because you're not fighting against yourself, you're now working for yourself to achieve the things you want to achieve, is to understand you actually can get good. So it's what I call the only belief that matters. The only belief that matters is that if you put time and attention into getting better at something, you'll actually get better at it. Not because you're special, not because you're brighter than the next person, because that is the physics of the human mind. That's just how the mind works. The truth of being a human is that if you apply energy into practicing something and that practice is well done, you will, as an inevitable consequence of that time and energy, have a deeper skill set. That skill set has utility. It lets you do something in the world that other people cannot do. Okay, so if we know that's true, now we don't need to seek a distraction, because when we realize, oh, we're not good enough yet, all that does, another layer of self-awareness, it lets us know the thing that we need to get better at. And now if I apply my time and energy to that thing, I will actually improve. So, okay, cool. Now I need rules to make sure that I clear that space for me to actually get good at that thing. Now, the only catch there is it needs to be something that you're actually excited to get good at, right? Like imagine that world where you're truly world-class at that thing, right? And the only thing that stands between you and being world-class at anything you care about, maybe not the best in the world, but world-class, is time. And so if you like that thing, you're excited by that thing, then you put these rules. And so a simple rule may be, I don't check my phone under any circumstance for any reason before 10 a.m. I don't know what your rule is going to be. It depends on what time you wake up. But for me, I don't take meetings before 10 a.m. The way I say it to myself is I don't let anyone control my time before 10 a.m. I don't take meetings from anybody on the team at Impact Theory. I don't even take meetings with Lisa unless there's something really like high time pressure that needs to be dealt with.
Rule number 3, make a list.
How do I focus on accomplishing one thing at a time when I have so much to do in one day? What's the best way to give your attention to what matters while still accomplishing the other things that need to get done? Example, I have lots of schoolwork to do every day, but also want to spend time learning the things I need to achieve my goals. All right, so this is all about getting really efficient with your time. So you're gonna wanna make a list. I titled mine important things and title yours whatever you think is best. And on that list, it's all action items. So it isn't just pontification. It's going to be, here are the things that I need to do and in order. So make sure that they're in order of what Tim Ferriss calls the lead domino. So you want to knock over that, the thing that then will cause other things to fall over first. Excuse me. So find that lead domino, make sure that you're doing that first, do the hard things, do the important things, do them in order, and make sure that you're blocking out your time. Make sure you also carve out time to think. So you need both, but at the end of the day, if you're not taking action, nothing matters. So I would keep that list and I would live in that list and I would just constantly be going through that list to make sure that I'm moving the most important things forward first. And then make sure that you're being deadly efficient with your time. So if you audit your time, I think you'd be as horrified as if you audit what you actually eat. And most people don't realize how many weird little calories they slip in here and there, especially if you have kids and you're eating a French fry or two off their plate, you're having some of their macaroni. It's like time is exactly the same. Like how much time did you spend at the water cooler just chatting? How much time did you spend on Reddit? Like all these things end up sucking away a lot of your time and people don't realize how much of their time they lose to that. So getting deadly efficient with your time, I think you'll find that you have plenty of time to do things sequentially. You can't do everything you want at the same time, but you can certainly do them sequentially if you're really efficient with your time.
Rule number 4, shift negative energy.
I like Jordan Peterson's idea of tell the truth or at least try not to lie. Sometimes there can be a truth that we leave unsaid because this is a momentary interaction where I would say kindness is the higher value than pointing out every flaw that we see or every bit of obnoxious behavior, because at some point it just spirals into madness to point out every misstep that somebody is doing. And so when I look at somebody that is being obnoxious, being rude, my goal is to shift their energy. How can I get them back into a place where they're feeling good, they're feeling warmth, they are in a place where they feel kind, right? Because most people, it isn't that they are incapable of kindness. And if they are, like imagine how shitty that life would be. Somebody who never experiences kindness, joy, warmth, connection, that would truly be its own hell. So I'm not going to worry about pointing out every obnoxious thing that they're doing. And I would play a game with myself of how much joy can I spread? And in some ways, you are leaving a truth unsaid, which is that they're being unkind or obnoxious or whatever. But by trying to spread kindness, you're not lying. And especially if you share that value with me of wanting to just put as much good vibes into the world you can. And look, I'm not perfect. And there is no doubt that sometimes people are just like, God damn, like I just don't want anything to do with it. But that doesn't feel like me at my best. Me at my best feels like, all right, cool. Can we switch this energy around? Can we get them to soften, to feel that human warmth and a bit of connection? And can I mean, with a smile, you will be shocked how much you can change somebody's demeanor. So that's how I would flip it. I would just see how much joy can I spread even when people are being problematic to me. Now, that doesn't mean that I let people abuse me or anything like that. I don't. I imagine you guys can get a pretty good guess about what I'm like. I don't let people walk over me or be a dick to me or whatever, but I find it far more interesting to try to change somebody's energy than to get them to go, yeah, I am being a dick. That's just not interesting to me. Trying to get them to sort of confess that they're the problem. I'd much rather hold myself accountable to like, how much sort of emotional jujitsu can I do here?
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there.
Rule number 5, orchestrate your life.
I think it is very instructive for people to ask the question, who's living my ideal life? And that doesn't mean who's making the most money. It means what person's life do you want to live? The real day-to-day grind of it. And when you identify what your dream job is, now we need to go about figuring out how we get that job. And so very quickly, a question about managing our ADHD and figuring out how to stay focused actually becomes a question of how do we get good at finding the right job? And so if you think about orchestrating your life, and most people live by the law of accident. I want to repeat that. Most people live by the law of accident. Don't let that be you, right? You bump into somebody. They know there's a job offering, or it's closer to where you live, or it's, easier for you with the kids, whatever. And so you bump into these things. It's like, oh yeah, cool. Oh, I'll make that little thing. And instead of designing your life, you end up just responding to sort of little bumps along the road that end up leading you down a path that was never a conscious choice. You want to sit down and map out, okay, we know that we need a job that meets certain criteria. And one piece of that criteria is that it allows you to be very physical and get that energy out. Okay, so take control of your lives. I cannot stress that one enough. Journaling is hugely important. Recognizing where you thrive, where you don't thrive, what are deal breakers. So it sounds like 8 hours behind a desk is a deal breaker for you. So map out those things, take very strict control of your life, and remember, this may be one of the things that has led me to have a career, a life that has certainly led to a tremendous amount of joy in my life and looks like from the outside impossible to obtain. I am an unreasonable person, and I set aside all of my lacking elements, all of my, that's a weird way to say inadequacies. I set aside all the things that I'm not good at because I know it's all a process. I can get good at anything that I point myself at, right? The only belief that matters, if I put time and attention to getting good at this thing, I actually will get good at this thing. So I just set all of that aside. Okay, cool, yeah, whatever. I'm not yet good enough to have the life that I want, my ideal life, but I'm going to get good enough. And from that, I plant a very unreasonable belief inside my soul, which is I can have any life I want. And now I just need to write out exactly what that is. I've handcrafted the life that I desire. And I know the realities of who I am and what needs to be true in order for me to move well through the world, right? As somebody who was diagnosed with ADHD as a kid, I fully get it. And so I have tailored my life to that. Momentum is everything to me because I've got to always be moving. I've got to always feel like I can have tomorrow be wildly different than today. But I take responsibility for the fact that I have to build that. And it's not going to happen by accident. The life I would be leading if I led my life by accident would be radically different. It would not be tailored to the things that I want. So don't be afraid to want. Don't be afraid to spend an inordinate amount of time thinking about what you really want. And then don't be afraid to be unreasonable in accepting nothing less.
Rule number 6, don't give up on your belief.
I get it. I get that humans do dumb things. I get that humans can be hurtful. I'm not interested, though, in what my partner did wrong. I'm only interested in what I can do next time to avoid the same mistakes without diminishing the beauty that is a relationship. Now, I have a fundamental belief that the single greatest joy that anybody can have in their life is to share a life with somebody that they love and who loves them, that they trust and who trusts them. So I'm not going to give up on that belief because it went wrong 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, whatever. I'm looking at what I can control to make sure that I don't end up back in that situation.
Rule number 7, scale.
What I really, really enjoy, in fact, I ask this of everybody, not everybody, I've asked this many, many, many times of people coming into the company. There are 2 choices before you. Choice number 1, you help, let's say 5 people, and they all know who you are. They would credit you with transforming their life. At your funeral, they would say, this man is the woman, is the reason that I have been successful. Plain and simple, I owe everything to them. They're crying, and it's like, you touch their lives, you touch their families' lives. Or would you rather affect 5 million people and none of them know who you are? Now, for me, it's not even a tough choice. I would rather affect the 5 million people and they have absolutely no idea who I am. At scale is all I care about. That's it. I am obsessed with doing things at scale. I've actually never taken the time to reflect on why I like that so much, but scale is what matters to me. Really helping a lot of people. That is the thing that I'm really driven by.
Rule number 8, embrace pain.
I'm convinced that while virtually everyone you're ever going to meet, they will tell you that they want to do something great with their life. They'll tell you that they've got big dreams, they've got plans, and they're going to make it happen. But they can't take criticism. They're not willing to look at what they're doing wrong. They're not willing to admit that everything is their fault, but it's just a frame of reference. And if they would change that frame of reference, it would change everything. And as Tim Grover said, the only difference between feedback and criticism is how you hear it. Understanding the brain, understanding how we process data, understanding the way that ideas get into your mind and cause a chain reaction of emotions. If you can't figure that out and rise above it and not become a victim of your emotions, not become a victim to people saying something that knock you off your confidence, that make you feel insecure, that actually cripple your ability to perform because of how you have decided to hear something. And that moment of awakening, that breakthrough, that is the realization that you decide what to focus on. You decide what to hear and what to take away from something. Somebody can assail you, they can attack you, they can victimize you. But it's a choice as to whether or not you play the victim. As Winston Churchill said, criticism may not be agreeable, but it's necessary. It fulfills the same function as pain in the human body. It calls attention to an unhealthy state of things. In the pursuit of greatness, people are still trying to avoid pain. If you really want to do something, if you really want to become somebody, then you've got to run headlong into pain. You've got to be looking for those things that make you suffer. You've got to seek out the pain. You've got to seek out the things that make you uncomfortable. You've got to want to hit that difficulty, because it is in those moments, it is in that bit of suffering, it is in seeing what you are not good at that is going to allow you to become great. And if you have to let it fill you with rage to really stand in anguish in order to force yourself to move, then stand in it. Do whatever you need to do in order to reach your goals. And if that's the motivation that you need, then embrace it and chase it. As Tony Robbins said, the purpose of pain is to move us into action. It's not to make us suffer. So in that anguish, in the excruciating pain, find no suffering. See the joy in it. Welcome it like an old friend. And the day that you can welcome your pain like an old friend, because you know, like a friend, it is taking you where you need to go. It is spurring you into action. It is pushing you to become something. And the process of rebirth, my friends, hurts. But whether you choose to suffer or not is your choice. Because remember Tim's words. The only difference between feedback and criticism is how you hear it. The only difference between pain and suffering is how you frame it. So it's your choice. It's up to you how you're going to move forward. But never for 1 second forget that it's a choice.
Rule number 9, congratulate yourself.
How do you deal with pain? Do you reward yourself each day? Do you seek instant gratification, or do you wait until you receive the pleasure you actually want, like achieving your long-term goals? So it really depends on what the pain is. If it's an acute pain, I force myself to lean into it. So like when I'm at the dentist and it really hurts, then I'll actually open my mouth wider to make sure that they get like absolutely no subtle signal for me that I'm in pain, because I want them to do whatever the hell they need to do, no matter how much it hurts. And then I'm rewarding myself in a self-congratulatory way for not being a wuss and for dealing with the pain when it's in service of something that I actually want to do and achieve. When it's a longer term, like slower pain, like just being ultra disciplined, not eating the things that I want to eat, oftentimes I'll focus on the results to keep myself really excited about what I'm doing. So with diet, living forever, optimizing my cognition, looking good naked, I'll stop and think about those things and think about having a discipline that other people don't have. And that gets me excited. I'll also reframe it. So if I'm really dieting hard, I know that I'm going to be hungry for hours and hours and hours on end, days and weeks stacking up. I will welcome the hunger like an old friend. And I will literally say in my head, welcome hunger, my old friend. I'm so glad that you're here, because it means that I'm metabolizing fat. So I do things like that to really get my head in the right place, so that I'm looking at something as positive. I'm looking at what it's bringing me. I'm focused on my goals. I know what I want. I'm focused on the identity of being the kind of person that's willing to do that. And again, it's self-congratulatory, because you're really stoked that you've got the discipline and the ability to do that stuff. So learning how to be self-congratulatory in a way that isn't gross, that doesn't make you an egomaniac, all of that stuff, I think is really, really important. And people need to learn to do that, to have compassion, to have love for yourself, to really be stoked on who you're becoming, I think is a really, really important thing.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is take action.
There's a phrase that I think about often, and that is action cures all. If you have a problem, I promise you, thinking about it isn't the solution. Taking action is. Hey, like you, I would go watch a bazillion YouTube videos, but I wouldn't watch a bazillion YouTube videos on how to do something before I tried it. I might watch a couple videos, but I mean literally a couple videos, and then I would immediately get involved in that thing. And you will find that in doing it, in trying to pull it off, you learn infinitely more. You now have context for what you're learning. You now will maybe steer your education in a different direction. I just cannot stress enough. You've got to take action. You've got to take action. And in that, all that din, that noise, you're going to begin to realize, like, wait a second, these people don't even know what they're talking about, because I'm actually out there doing it. These people do know what they're talking about, so I'm going to be listening more to them. But action cures all. Like, that has to be the mantra that everybody lives by. I cannot tell you that the thing that has propelled me forward is I am so unafraid of embarrassing myself. I know that when I get started on something, I'm going to look stupid. And my willingness to look stupid and not try to pose or look cool, to go out there, get kicked in the face, embarrass myself, recollect myself, and move forward. That's how I keep winning. And irony of ironies is, If you recognize that you should never judge yourself through the lens of a moment, you should only judge yourself through the lens of a lifetime, or more practically, 3-year movements, 10-year movements. When you start thinking like that, then it's like, I laugh because all the people making fun of me on a long enough timeline, I will beat them all. And I really believe that, going back to me being a very unreasonable person. I know that I will win. On a long enough timeline, I can beat anyone at anything because I have the only belief that matters, that if I put time and energy into getting better at something, I will actually get better. Now, most people can't do it. Most people cannot get their ego out of the way. Most people can't eliminate the distractions. Most people succumb to the paralysis of indecision. They're so afraid to be embarrassed that they let that noise, right? The very well-defined sense of distraction from other people's voices stop them from growing, from learning, from trying, from taking action. Now, if you take action and recognize, I'll get better, these guys can make fun of me, they're never going to stick with it, they won't be able to deal with the emotion of getting embarrassed, of failing at something, of recognizing that you truly aren't good enough yet. Now, most people don't have the word yet. That you do. You will use that as a weapon. And I know people hate it when I use war language, but I love it. You will use it as a weapon that you will wield in your quest for success. You can't make a racehorse out of a pig, but you can make a really fast pig. Your life can be the answer to what does a fast pig look like. That is certainly what my life is. All the success that I've had in my life is not because I was gifted at any one thing. When I left for college, my mother quietly assumed I was going to fail. My best friend assumed I was going to marshmallow my way through life. When I asked my father-in-law for his blessing to marry his daughter, he said no. And yet I went on to be successful, to earn my father-in-law's respect, not because they misidentified me, because they didn't, they were right, but because I developed drive. I got the only belief that mattered. And I finally realized that humans are meant to grow and get better at something. And I just have to apply myself. And the same is true for you. Decide what you want to get good at and go after it with everything you've got. And that, my friends, is how you overcome negativity.
As Henry Rollins said, I don't have talent, so I just get up earlier. The thing that people think about becoming great, about doing the extraordinary, is that it's just meant for some people and not meant for others. And they spend their time making other people extraordinary as a way to let themselves off the hook. Because if somebody is just gifted, if they were blessed by God, if they were touched by an angel, and they just have something that you don't and something that you never will have, then it's fine for them to be great and you to be ordinary. But the reality is it's not how it works. But somehow the cultural narrative has become one where we celebrate natural talent. That if somebody is graced by God, that if they have something divine about them, that they're somehow better, that it's more beautiful than the scrappy person who's had to work for everything they've ever had. The guy who simply acknowledges, like Henry Rollins, that he doesn't have more talent than the next person. He's simply willing to outwork them. He's willing to set the alarm, to get up, to do whatever it takes, to find his path, to create that skill, to outwork talent, to show that by putting in that energy and that effort, there's a magnification effect that is far greater than anything that can be given to you, bestowed upon you. You have to grab it. You have to take it. You have to have a level of intensity in your life to be able to leverage it and create something amazing. And as Warren Buffett said, intensity is the price of excellence. If you want to be great, you've got to cultivate that intensity. You've got to understand it's not about what you were born with. It's not about what you were given, where you started, or even where you're going. It is entirely about what you plant at the center of your soul, how hard you're willing to go after something, how much focus you're willing to put in your life, and how often you come back to that level of intensity for who you want to be. Because if you want to be excellent, you will have to pay a price. And that price is eternal vigilance.
Vigilance over how you spend your time. Vigilance over the demands you make of yourself. Vigilance over what you allow yourself to think and believe. And when you get to the point that you only allow yourself to think and believe things that move you towards your goals, that every day the actions you take are things that are designed to get you there, and that you have the intensity to follow that through, to shape yourself, to create a new version of you capable of doing something extraordinary, then your life is going to be what you want. But not until then. It's never going to be anything if you just make other people extraordinary and say, I could never do that. But the reality is you could, and you're just not. So the thing that you have to face right now is that it is within your grasp. You just have to go after it.
And let me tell you, passion is not something you were born with. It drives me nuts. Everybody thinks they're going to turn inside like an archaeologist and find that thing, their deepest passion, the thing they always loved, hiding inside. As soon as you say it, I hope it sounds ridiculous, that you would love something that much and yet somehow be blind to it? It doesn't work like that. It's like real love. You've got to go on a date first. You see somebody you're interested in. You talk to them. It sparks something. You spend time. You engage. And through that process of engaging with it, maybe, if you're lucky, it turns into a fascination. But if you really want a passion, you've got to go through the process of gaining mastery. And mastery is the part of the relationship in business or in romance where everybody falls apart, because it's where the work starts. It's where you have to do things long after it stopped being fun. Now, the process of taking myself from scrounging in my couch cushions to find enough change to put gas in my car to building a billion-dollar business was all about building a set of beliefs. Now, I believe that the Matrix has us all. I don't actually think we live in a simulation, but I think the movie The Matrix is the perfect metaphor for the human experience. We have all pulled a web of lies over our own eyes. And the web of lies is what you tell yourself about what's possible for you and for the world. And once you get that web of lies over your eyes, you simply see it as reality. And you don't understand that each one of those fundamental beliefs is alterable, that you could choose to believe something else. In fact, you don't even realize that they are beliefs. Einstein has a quote. It's one of the most important quotes in my life. The most important question any man must decide for himself is whether or not he lives in a friendly or hostile universe. Now, what I love about that quote, so what's hiding in it, is that it's a decision. You get to choose whether you're living in a friendly or a hostile universe. There's no objective reality. It just is what it is. You're going to get what you see. You're going to get what you focus on. And you see what you focus on.
So many people are obsessed with becoming perfect that they never take action and they never learn to enjoy this moment. That may be one of the greatest tragedies any of us can face. That right now, whatever we are, however good we are, whatever we've accomplished, that we fail to enjoy this moment because we have a judgment about who we are deep down because we haven't acted in a way that's perfect. And I get it. We have this drive. It's innate in us. We want to be great. It's one of the 5 primary human drivers to pursue mastery, to want to master something and truly be extraordinary. I understand the drive, but don't let it corrode you. Don't ever do something that eats you alive from the inside. You've got to have a vision of yourself that allows you to morph and change and learn from your mistakes. But if you value perfection over learning, then you're never going to become the person that you'd be capable of becoming. And as Anna Quindlen said, the thing that is really hard and really amazing is giving up on being perfect and beginning the work of becoming yourself. Let me tell you something that is true beyond measure. The struggle is guaranteed. The success is not. The struggle is a guarantee. So you better love what you do on a day-to-day basis. Read Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. The only moment that's real is right now. Now follows you.
So every time you're doing something, if you're standing and staring and waiting for someone to finish going to the restroom or whatever, you're standing in line at Disneyland, that is your life. That is the sum total of what you are about in that moment. And life is simply a string of those moments. And so you've got to start asking yourself, am I using those moments wisely?
Everything around you is incredible if you're willing to look at it that way. Everything around you can be taken for granted if that's your perspective. But it really is about the frame that you choose to put around things. I mean, simply being alive is already insane. The odds are so stacked against you, not only just being a human, but being a human at this moment in time. This moment in time where breakthroughs in technology are happening at an unprecedented rate, where breakthroughs in medical science are happening at an unprecedented rate, where our ability to connect with people, to empathize with people all the way around the globe, all of the changes that have happened in technology and telecom and connectivity, health, everything. We're living in the most miraculous time ever. But you have to look at it that way. And as Joseph Campbell said, life is a wonderful, wonderful opera, except that it hurts. So the question is, do you see it as the beautiful opera? Or do you just pay attention to the pain? And at the end of the day, you're going to get what you focus on. They're both true. This is both the most amazing time that's ever happened ever in recorded history. And yet real things that are terrifying are also happening. But where you put your energy, where you put your attention, where you put your focus is going to determine what you see. And that is the most fascinating and the most important thing you have to understand about the way that your mind works. You get what you focus on. If you focus on the things that are bad, they will become real. They will become exaggerated. They will begin to monopolize your thoughts. You'll see them everywhere. It's called the reticular activating system. Your mind is literally designed to pay attention to the things that you notice. Once you notice a certain car, you see it everywhere. Once you notice a certain dog, you see it everywhere. Once you hear a certain name for the first time, suddenly you realize that that name has been all around you this entire time. But now that you're focusing on it, now that you're looking for it, it is everywhere. So whatever you look for, it's going to be everywhere. If you look for the negative, it'll be there. But if you look for the positive, it will overwhelm you.
And if you guys haven't read the book Antifragile by Nassim Taleb, do. In that book, he lays out the difference between something that is resilient and something that is truly antifragile. I'm going to say somebody that's unstoppable is truly antifragile. And what antifragile is, the more you attack it, the stronger it gets. So something that is resilient or tough, it is still defined by its breaking point. The more you go after it, eventually it will break. Something that's antifragile grows with that. And I believe each and every one of us can build a mindset that is truly anti-fragile. But there is only one thing that I have found that is actually anti-fragile, and it looks like this. I was there with my partners. They routinely made me feel stupid all the time. They were older than me. They were more than 10 years ahead of me on their entrepreneurial journey. And so I was just wrong all the time. Now, up to that point in my life, I actually called myself the king of remedial jobs. Up until then, I'd only gone for jobs where I knew I'd be smarter than the person interviewing me. I knew that at some point during the interview, they were going to ask that magical question which made me feel so good about myself, which was, why are you here? Why are you interviewing for this job? And I lived for that because it made me feel smart. So here I am, now not in that world anymore. I'm with guys who are way ahead of me. They're way smarter than me. And I feel dumb all the time. And one day I find myself arguing for this path in our business because it was my idea. And I knew it was wrong. That was the hilarious thing. I knew it was wrong, and yet I was arguing for it, like really passionately. And then all of a sudden, it actually worked. And they agreed to do it. And I thought, oh, now what? I've been telling my wife that I'm going to make her rich, and here I am arguing for something that just makes me feel good about myself. And I had this moment of crisis. And I asked myself, no judgment, what do you really want? Because if what you really want is to feel good about yourself, to feel smart, to be right, to be worthy, if those are the things that you want, then get out of this company. Because you're wrong often. You're making mistakes all the time. And your partners are so far ahead of you that they make you feel stupid. So this is like, that doesn't make any sense. So if you want to just go feel good, go back to being the king of remedial jobs, be in places where you're always feeling smart, where you're usually right, and live that life. But if, on the other hand, what you really want is to actually reach your goals, then you're going to have to stop worrying about feeling good about yourself. And both of those felt flawed. Everybody needs to feel good about themselves. That's just the reality of being a human. You've got to find a way to feel good about yourself. But I really believe everything you do in life should be in service of your goals. And the moment that you're acting out of alignment with your goals, you either have a problem with your goal or with your behavior. One of them is going to have to change. And so I realized in that moment that I needed to change what I was building my self-esteem around, because I was building it around being right and I was wrong so much. I was building it around being smart and I just wasn't that smart. I was building it around being good and worthy. And the fact is, those were just judgments on myself. And so I decided right then and there, it's the one thing in my life that borders on truly being an epiphany. And I realized I need to change what I build my self-esteem around, and it needs to be something that, I didn't have the word antifragile at the time, but something that the more somebody goes after it, the better off I'm going to be. The more it's going to push me towards my goals. And that thing is, and if somebody has a better answer, I will take it, but the only way to build your ego that is truly antifragile that I have found is to be the learner. To be willing to admit when you're wrong. To look at your goal and work backwards and say, is what I'm doing actually moving me towards my goal or not? Not does it make me feel good about myself? Not am I right? Not am I smart? Is it moving me towards my goal? And if it is, then you do it. And if it doesn't, then you don't. And my life became that cut and dry. And you can literally draw a line in the sand, a demarcation point of my life before that and my life after that.
As Kurt Vonnegut, one of the greatest authors in modern times, said, "When I write, I feel like an armless, legless man with a crayon in his mouth." But he still did it. And that's the kind of thing that you're going to hear from the greats. You're not going to hear that it was easy. You're not going to hear that they felt suave and cool. Even the greatest of all time have that awkwardness and that clumsiness. They're never quite as good as they want to be. But what I want you to understand is, even though Kurt Vonnegut said those words, he wrote tons of books that changed people's lives, that changed the landscape of literature, because despite the fact that he felt awkward and clumsy, he kept doing it and forcing himself to move forward, to take one step after another, even when the process was not exactly rewarding. He believed in something. He knew that what he was trying to do would ultimately get better. He knew that if he wanted to accomplish something great, that he had to push through the awkwardness. And that is the very trick to getting great. You just have to do it. You have to go, you have to take that first step, you have to push, you have to drive, you have to strive every time to get a little bit better. You have to strive not to fall prey to your own doubts and insecurities. And as Joe Namath said, if you aren't going all the way, why go at all? Whatever your skill set is now, whatever your vision of yourself is now, you can change it. You can become anything you want to be. But life is going to ask you one simple question. What price are you willing to pay to get there? And that's it. That's the hard truth. If you're willing to pay the price, then you can become whatever you want. You can become truly capable of the extraordinary. But you've got to go through the process of building that skill set. You've got to be willing to stare nakedly at your inadequacies, to understand that you aren't yet the person that you want to be or need to be to execute against your goals, but that you can become that person and then start walking down that path. And day by day, brick by brick, build the skill set that you want. As Harun Yehya noted, I always wonder why birds stay in the same place when they can fly anywhere on Earth. And then I ask myself the same question. As Mark Twain put it, the secret of getting ahead is getting started. And that's where people get stuck. You're literally like the bird. You could fly anywhere you want. You can go anywhere you want to go. And look, I know you've got a litany of excuses, and all of them are valid. You've got a job, you can't just leave, or you don't have a job and you don't have the money. Your family is in one place. It's the only thing that you've ever known. You only speak one language. You've never traveled before. You don't have a passport. You can't afford the gas money. There are 1,000 real reasons not to go. But the truth is that none of them matter. The truth is, if you want to build something in your life, then you have to remember what Mark Twain said. You have to get started, because at the end of the day, that is literally the only thing that's holding you back. You're not moving. And once you get the simplicity of that, once you understand that you could act right now, you could say all the excuses. You could stop making them. You could stop giving into them, no matter how valid they are, no matter how real they may seem. You can finally decide that you're going to get up and move, that you're going to create that momentum, that you're going to take a step, that you're going to make the demand, that you create momentum, that you get something done, that you find an answer, or as Hannibal said, that you're going to find a way or make one. If you have to carve through rock, do it, because humans before you have done it. And that's the simple truth. That is the simple truth. And everything else is the weak voice in your mind holding you back and making you a less version of yourself. So I ask you, why doesn't the bird fly wherever it wants to go? Because that's all it's known? Because that's what's safe? Because that's what's comfortable? Or because it's a dumb animal? What do you want to be? If this isn't the life you want to live, do something about it.
Humans lead with belief. That may be the single most important thing to understand. Humans lead with belief, meaning you don't do something and then believe you can do it. You won't even take the first step if you don't believe that your actions will be rewarded with results. That's why so many people are paralyzed, because they think that they're not worthy, they know they're uneducated, they know that they're not the person that they need to be in order to accomplish. And the reality is, you're probably not. The fact is, your skill set has already taken you as far as it's going to take you. So if you are unsatisfied with where you are today, I have some horrifying news for you. I'll chase it with some good news. But first, let's start with the bad. The bad news is, your life is an exact reflection of the choices you've made. That's it. It's not circumstance. It comes down to skill set and choices. You've chosen to build a certain skill set. You've chosen to do certain things, take certain risks, play certain things safely, whatever the case may be. Those were all choices. Now your life is a reflection of that. What I want you to understand, though, the belief, the only belief that you need to have, that thing that is going to allow you to take that first step, is not to believe that you're capable of what you're trying to build, because we all know you're not. I knew that I wasn't when we started Quest. I knew I wasn't the person that I needed to be. I understood that. It just didn't paralyze me, because I believed one thing. And if you take nothing else from what I say today, burn the following statement into your soul. Humans are the ultimate adaptation machine. That's it. Charles Darwin is often misquoted as saying that it's the strongest of the species that survive. He never said that. What he actually said was, it's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but rather the most adaptive to change. We're the apex predator for a reason, because unlike any other animal, we have the ability to go in any direction we want. We're the only species that you can find anywhere. At one point, James Cameron was actually at the bottom of the Marianas Trench. We can thrive anywhere, from Inuits living in the tundra to peoples that have survived in the desert, because humans adapt. That is the fundamental nature of what we are.
So then these two successful entrepreneurs walk into my class. And up to that point, I'd promised myself two things. So I grew up chubby in a morbidly obese family and with no money. And I said, one day I'm gonna be rich and one day I'm gonna have six-pack abs. And That was my promise. And these guys walked in and they were rich and they had six-pack abs. And they said, look, we're starting a technology company. Why don't you come be a copywriter? And I was like, absolutely. And it's one of those where people are like, what are you doing? Like, you're leaving the secure job? For me, I was like, they're like unicorns to me.
Yeah.
They are literally the thing I'm looking for.
Yeah.
They are rich and they have six-pack abs and they're gonna let me into their company.
Yeah.
And so their whole pitch was, look, man, this is a startup. You can have any job in this company you want. You just have to become the right person for the job. So it was a tech company. It was in this beautiful office overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Every single person in that company had a floor to ceiling window overlooking the Pacific Ocean, except me. And they put me in the server room, which had no windows and a bunch of computers, all whirring and making noise. And I remember one of the guys was like, who's the kid in the server room? And so that's how I became known. I was the kid in the server room. I didn't know anything about business. I would bring my wife to visit me in the office, and I'm like, look how beautiful the office is, and this is where I'm at. You know, and like literally like those makeshift desks that are like really like a table that you would use on a picnic, but you've got a computer stacked on it. That's where I worked all day.
Do you believe big time that identity is shaped by these associations in everybody's life?
100%.
Talk about that for a second.
So it's so aggressive, and it's now getting repeated. So I fear trite words, but words become trite because they're so true that people repeat them until they lose their meaning. So you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. That's just true. But now it's become so common to say, and it's like every Instagram post, that I fear it's going to lose its meaning. Who are you spending time with? Because if you're spending time with people like you, you're spending time with people like me, I'm raising you up, or I'm just not gonna spend time with you. So it's like now, if you get in a mix of people like that who are like, man, we'd love for you to raise up to this level. But if you don't, it's fine, but we're just not gonna spend time with you. All of a sudden, that desire to belong to something powerful that you can see is gonna lead you to your dreams. And I remember saying to my wife over and over and over, they are the surest path to my success. I don't know anything else. I just know if I can hang on to these guys, they're gonna make me better.
Literally, the first time I wrote this whole article, it was my first blog article, and it was all about how if I were hit by a drunk driver, I would take ownership of that. I would say that is my fault. And people were pissed. And I was so shocked. I literally thought, I want to pull people from the matrix. What's the one gift that I could give people that will change their life forever? And I wrote this whole thing, and I was like talking about like, oh man, you're in this spot and it ends up being a kill box and there's cars on either side of you and a car in front of you and your horn dies and you can't even start your car and move. You look in the rearview mirror and this drunk driver's plowing down, they smash into you and it's all your fault. And thank God, because now you remember that you're in control. But people thought I was victim shaming. People were outraged that I would say that that was anyone's fault but the drunk driver. But I don't want to do that because I choose not to ever be a victim. I cannot choose whether I'm victimized, but I have the ability to say I will never be a victim because there's always something you can do differently. There is always something you can do differently. And once you understand that you can always make a different choice and get a different reaction, and that's the power in your life, that's the power that you have, is no matter what's going on, you can choose to think differently, believe differently, see differently. All of those things are a choice. Read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Lost his whole family to the Holocaust, was in, I think, 5 different concentration camps. And he said the thing that people die of in a concentration camp is the loss of a why. And Nietzsche said if you have a why, you can survive almost any how. Because you can always change how you think about something. And when you change how you think about it, it's what we've been talking about all day. When you change how you think about it, you actually change the event.
Here's the problem I find most people have. They judge themselves through the lens of a moment. They fail at something. They miss the honor club. They don't close that deal they thought they were going to. They embarrass themselves. They flub something. And they think that defines who they are. But I'm telling you right now, you're not defined by who you are. You're defined by who you want to become and the price you're willing to pay to get there.
Here's the hard truth about getting great. It takes time and dedication. It takes a willingness to accept that you're not yet good enough. It takes the ability to stare at the places that you know that you're weak, to really look at those things and not let it affect your sense of self-esteem and not let it affect your sense of self-worth, so that you can still get the momentum going. But you have to understand that in the beginning, we're all terrible. And as Henri Cartier-Bresson said, your first 10,000 photographs are your worst. And so the thing that really makes great art are the people that continue to push and the people that continue to work and face how inadequate they are and really understand that at the end of the day, greatness is a craft. Greatness is a process. Greatness is a habit. Greatness is the little things that you do every day, over time, going out every day, unafraid of whether or not this is one of the 10,000 terrible things that you're going to do. It's being unafraid to make those mistakes. It's being unafraid that you're not yet great. And as Marianne Radmacher said, courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes courage is the quiet voice at the end of the day saying, I will try again tomorrow. And that's it. If you want to be great, that's what you have to do. You've got to get up again tomorrow. You've got to be willing to face another day. You've got to be willing to accept that you've got to get through the bad ideas before you can get to the good. You've got to understand that you have to start as an apprentice. You have to start as a person going and getting tea, and you have to accept that that's the job that you should be playing, that you should be working for somebody else. You should be looking up to somebody else and seeing what they can teach you, because what you know is that you're there to learn. What you know is that you're there to get through the 10,000 bad photographs that you need to get through to ultimately achieve greatness. And if you make the catastrophic error that so many make, to try to tell the world that you're extraordinary today, to try to get the world to follow you and look up to you and think that you're something today. Because the people that really win are the ones that invest today, the ones that listen today, the ones that spend every ounce of their energy amassing mastery, getting better every day, working their asses off to improve their skill set, to relentlessly look at the things that they're not doing well, to understand that they have to break themselves down and get rid of all of their ego before they can really find greatness. Those are the people that we remember. So if you want to be remembered, if you want to achieve real greatness, you just need to have the courage to show up every day and take another swing, take another photo, try another task, do something that scares you, and do those little things over and over and over until you win.
So the one thing I will say is I was grandly ambitious. I always said, I'm going to be rich, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Always, since the time I was a little kid, but I didn't have the drive to see it through. So I really was an empty dreamer when I was a kid, and it was learning to hate that in myself, if I'm completely honest.
Yes.
And to not allow myself to be an empty dreamer, to force myself to get the skills to actually execute against it, to not be in any way, shape, or form pacified by saying I'm going to do something, which is actually super dangerous. Most people just thinking about the fantasy of what they're going to do gives them some partial sense of, oh, I've done it. Whereas I stopped letting that be okay for me, which largely came down to embarrassment I felt around my wife working when I had no job. And that was the time, she was my fiance at the time, but that was when I really started to go, okay, you've made a lot of promises to this woman and you're not on a path to keep any of them.
Tom, am I going to make it? Do I have what it takes? When you look into my future, can you see me making it? And I'm going to cut to the chase for all of you, and you're going to mistake what I'm about to say for good news. And then I'm going to tell you why it's actually the worst thing I could tell you. You all meet minimum requirements. You all meet minimum requirements. So whatever it is you want to do, I'm not going to say that it's going to be easy for you because you're ultra smart or something. You probably aren't. But everyone that I've encountered here, literally, without exception, every single person that has come up to me and said something, you meet minimum requirements. Even you awkward that have a hard time like making eye contact. Even you guys, I'm telling you right now, you've got some shit you're gonna have to deal with, but you meet minimum requirements. Now, minimum requirements for what? For whatever you want. Now that sounds great, right? Oh, Tom said I can make it. This is amazing. But all I've actually said is now, if you don't make it, it's on you. And that's it. There's nobody else to blame. Everything is your fault. Everything.
Once you understand, the whole reason to acquire a skill is that it gives you power. Now I'm going to define power. Power to me is the ability to close your eyes and imagine a world, the world the way you wish it was, and then open your eyes and make that world come true. That's power. And the thing that stands between you, where you are today, and your goals, where you want to get, is a gap in skill set. It is a gap in abilities. And once you're willing to look nakedly at your inadequacies, to literally build your self-esteem, your entire sense of self-worth and value is built around one thing. Whenever you face an obstacle, whenever you face a difficulty, whenever you fail, you have one thing that you say to yourself. On a long enough timeline, I can learn this. When you switch your life around to that, whatever your goal is here, whatever part of the honors club or the leading edge you're at, or if you want to go beyond that, whatever that is, wherever you want to go, plant that flag, identify the skills that you would need to get there, and then set about every day getting those skills.
People get the do part. They understand their actions should be actions that take them towards what they want to accomplish. But people often miss the most important part, which is only to believe things that move you towards your goals. And I see people every day that tell themselves the story about themselves that they are worthless, that they're meaningless, that they're pointless, that their friends and family would be better off if they just died. So we have to find a way to construct a narrative about ourselves that empowers us, that lifts us up, even though we make mistakes, even though we fall down, even though we're never going to get things right all the time, and even though terrible things happen to us, or maybe we do terrible things. But in that, the erosion of the self, that's the danger. The erosion of the self, that is the danger. And when I talk to people about the 80-20 principle, 80% of the time you should be focused on the things that you love, the beautiful things that you want to bring to this world, the beautiful things that are already in the world. And 20% of the time you should be kicking yourself in your ass and saying you can do better. It's such a powerful idea. But the problem is when people get to the 20%, they forget that it's only supposed to be 20% of the time. And that it's meant to be these acute moments where you're pushing yourself to be more, to do more. It isn't so you can tear yourself down. That's why you have to do and believe that which moves you towards your goals. And if thinking that you're a worthless piece of shit moves you to your goals somehow, then fine, do it. But I can't literally fathom a universe in which that would be a logical way to move forward. So I'm going to give you the magic words that you need right now to never fall prey to that. Believing I'm worthless does not serve me, and I don't do things that don't serve me. Repeat that in your head every time you begin to disparage yourself.
Here's the harsh reality. You're just not good enough yet. As Brian Tracy said, your true success in life begins only when you make the commitment to become excellent at what you do. This is the gap that I see in most people's lives. They've not yet made the commitment to become extraordinary. And the reason that they haven't made that commitment yet is they don't believe that they can. They're afraid of what it might take to get there. They just don't want it enough. That's the reality. most people don't want it enough to face all of that. They don't want to face their inadequacies. They don't want to accept that they're going to have to go through that process, that gut-wrenching, back-breaking process of becoming great. And every day lulls them into this sense that there's always time to do it tomorrow. But the reality is there is only now. There is only today. And if you really want to do something with your life that leaves your own jaw on the floor, that leaves you in awe of what you've done, you're going to have to admit you're not yet good enough. That you've got to put in that work. That you've got to develop a set of skills that simply can't be denied. But if you do that, on the other side of getting that good at falling in love with something and working so hard that you can feel yourself changing as a human being, on the other side of that is something unimaginably beautiful. And as Les Brown said, if you set goals and go after them with all the determination you can muster, your gifts will take you places that will amaze you. That's what I want in my life, and I hope that's what you want in yours, is to be amazed at how extraordinary this life really is, this opportunity to make of yourself anything you want to be. Really think about that for a second. You can become anything you want to become. You can become an astronaut, a world-class athlete, a musician, the best parent that this world has ever seen. Anything you want is yours for the taking. But it takes effort. It takes a willingness to stare nakedly at your inadequacies. It takes a willingness to really gut check yourself about where you are today. And it doesn't mean that you can't go and be something better tomorrow. And falling in love with that process, that knowing that being a human and really getting the most out of your potential is that. To know that tomorrow I can be better than I am today, and that doesn't make you a bad person today. It's okay to know that you can be better tomorrow and still love yourself today. But it's also okay to love yourself today and demand that you get better tomorrow. And once you can do that, there is literally nowhere you can't go.
So I would get kicked in the face and I would do something really dumb. I'd be called an idiot, told how stupid I was. And then I'd just be like, all right, I need to recenter. And that just became my obsession. I need to be able to emotionally get back to complete neutral so fast that you don't even see it register on my face.
How'd you do it? How do you do that?
Literally practice. So I could be in a situation where I'm being berated or I legitimately mess up and it costs money and it's like, whoa, that's on me and it is nobody's bad but my own. And I realized that what most people do, their strategy is to deflect it. It's your fault, it's not my fault.
Yes.
So I started thinking of this as a metaphor. People are throwing gold at me. They're throwing it really hard and I can put a shield up and deflect it, but then I lose that piece of gold. If I drop my shield and just take the pain, let it hit me in the head, then I bend down and go, this thing, which was me being stupid, there's a lesson here. And now I have this piece of gold. But the whole thing is I have to be defenseless. So I have to own it, I have to take it, I can't fight. If someone is like, this to this day, if our team is like, hey, there's something we need to point out to you, I'll do this. I square up to it. I want them to know, like, hey, I want to hear it. I want to know. Like, I want to be literally physically open. I'm not going to close down. I'm going to do everything I can to square off, to open myself so that they know I'm receptive to the criticism, right? Because that's the nugget of gold. What I know is it's going to hurt. It's going to sting.
Yep.
But if I can emotionally recenter so fast you don't even see that I went through something, now I can just process, how do I take this information you've given me and get better? I went through the pain of living the cliche of money can't buy happiness early. So that was the very thing that gave birth to my true financial success. Was
so
me
walk
saying,
me through that though. Because most people will never experience what it's like to come into crazy wealth.
Yeah, it is a really funny moment, and funny is the right word. It's fun, but it's also funny in that when I was growing up, part of the reason I wanted to get rich was I looked at those people with admiration and I did not look at myself with admiration. So I thought, oh, well, if I can get wealthy, then I will look at myself with admiration. This will be amazing. And then when I got the money, by then I had changed myself fundamentally as a person, and I had earned so much self-respect and so much self-worth that by the time I got the money, I wasn't looking for anything from the money other than it is the great facilitator. It will let you do extraordinary things, but it won't make you an extraordinary person. It won't make you feel any differently about yourself. And because the money came literally like that, because we had paper wealth, so I was worth hundreds of millions of dollars on paper. But I just cannot stress enough, that's meaningless in your real life. I was driving, at one point a beat up Ford Focus. My wife and I had to share it, had a leaky exhaust. And yet at that point, I was worth tens of millions of dollars. But there were employees that were living far better lives than I was from a financial standpoint. So that's paper money. Now, bank account money came in an instant. And so it was about, 6 years into our journey. And we decided to take a small investment to diversify. So it was a pure founder liquidity moment. And because the valuation of the company was over $1 billion, you can imagine, even at a small percentage, just the raw number of dollars is insanity. So all of a sudden I was fantastically wealthy. But I was like, it is so, in fact, this was how that day went. So everyone, I said earlier, beliefs, values, identity, habits, routines, right? These are the things that make people up. And I just have a value system that says it's not about the money. It's about building something you believe in. It's about serving other people. It's about work ethic. It's about showing up and working. And I value myself for that. So on the day that the money hit, it hit at 8 a.m. in the morning or something. And my wife, we're both in the gym. And she's like, what are we going to do today? And I was like, what do you mean? I'm going to work. And she couldn't wrap her head around that. She's like, whoa.
You're going to go to the Lamborghini dealer?
Yeah, she's like, come on, we've got to go do something. We've got to celebrate. And I'm like, there's no universe in which I don't show up for work today. None, under no circumstances. So if you were to ask my employees, when did the money hit? They all be like, I have no idea. They knew that it did hit, but they didn't know what day because I acted completely the same. And the thing that I want people to understand is I feel the same. So all of the things that I believe about myself to be good, I still believe to be good. I earned them. I earned them by doing the hard thing time and time and time and time again. I know how much I'm willing to serve people and my family and myself and all. I just know I've done it for years and years and years. So when it came to, do I buy an island and retire or do I double down? It came down to what will make me love my life the most. And the reality is the thing that would make me love my life the most, because it would still be fun to just go home and be with my wife. But the thing that will make me love my life the most is to do the things that are fulfilling. And I think fulfillment has a very specific, universal formula. And that formula is work your ass off to get very good at something that you care deeply about that allows you to serve not only yourself, but other people. That's it.
And for me, I grew up in a morbidly obese family. My uncle essentially ate himself to death when I was 12 years old, and it was scary and sad. My mom is morbidly obese, has been my entire life. My sister's morbidly obese, has been almost her entire life. My dad at one point was morbidly obese and then lost weight, but it was that's just where my family lived.
Yeah.
And so I was like, they're going to die far sooner than they need to. And there's this great Mother Teresa quote, nobody will act for the many, but people will act for the one. And so I just needed to wake up every day and think about my mom and my sister, and that was it. And I thought, I can show up every day and fight for them. It's not about the money anymore.
This may be the biggest problem we face as a society. People don't remember that skills have utility. They let you do something. You don't learn to build a house to impress your parents. You learn to build a house so people can live in the house you build. And once people understand that, holy, you're building this house so somebody can live in it, build a home in it, have a family, be sheltered from storms. It's a real thing, man. And so all of that effort and energy you went into, I have the chills right now, is so you can create that moment for yourself, for other people. It is something so much more than going to architecture school, which maybe you went to because your parents wanted that and they were architects. And so you do that thing for that. And you forget that the whole reason you became an architect was to build houses. And so once people realize, I'm putting all of this time and energy to build these things because they let me do something. What do I want to do? What do I want to give? What do I want to create? When you look at skills from that perspective, it is being a superhero. It is being a superhero. You're going to collect these abilities. These abilities actually let you do something. The fact that Superman can fly allows him to save people, allows him to do things other people can't do. We all have this opportunity to become capable of the extraordinary, to be able to do things other people can't do. And that feels so good.
If you want another amazing Tom Bilyeu video, check it out right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
All the information that you need is out there right now. Go read a book, go listen to a podcast, find somebody that's been successful in the way that you want and listen to them. The bad news is you won't take all of their advice. You'll take some of it, some small percentage.